Collective intelligence, sounds like a very foreign concept to us, especially when we're brought up in a very post-Enlightenment individualistic tradition. But collective intelligence has always been, I would say, part of our thinking about what intelligence means. A great deal of our the way we have experienced consciousness and engage in thinking is via collective constructs. It's the collectivity of language that is inseparable from the way we experience consciousness. Collective intelligence is absolutely there in the very substrate of how we think. Collective intelligence has been among some of the most important innovations in human history. We are individuals, it's true, because we experience our awareness and consciousness at the individual level. We have to aggregate preferences and beliefs and ideas, sometimes in collective forms, in order to do things. So I like to say that there are multiple technologies for collective decision-making that are examples of collective intelligence. So whether you're thinking of tribal councils, juries, courts, legislatures, lobbying groups, political parties, corporations, these are all actually examples of collective intelligence because they aggregate consciousness and thinking, and cognition and the preferences of individual members into a collective. And then the collective decision ends up affecting every individual as well. So we've all been sort of living in a collective intelligence state, right? All of us are assemblages of individual cells, and one of your most important organs of cognition and emotion is the microbiome inside your body. Concept of individual emerges from that collective action. We're at this stage where the technology has progressed to a certain point where we're now able to do things we could not have done ever before. So for example, I spoke of language as a form of collective intelligence, these secondhand words. Previously, language existed only in our heads and in our individual interactions. But now, with the advent of large language models, we can now sort of interrogate and interact with language qua language. It's a separate, actual, instantiated thing, which is incredible if you think about it. What you're doing when you're engaging with a large language model. You are interacting with the collective linguistic wisdom and linguistic output of humanity. And the experience has been uncanny for many of us, largely because I think we never quite understood what it was like to engage with this collective diffuse intelligence, which is now concretized. But I think it's an example pointing towards a future in which we can perhaps use technology to collect, for lack of a better term, to gather, to somehow abstract out of our individual intelligences and consciousnesses something grander, something bigger. The thing that I'm most interested in is whether this emergent new higher level of collective intelligence will still allow us to preserve our individuality. It would be wonderful if we can have this rich kind of individual quality of experience of consciousness while at the same time having a much more concretized form of collective intelligence drawn from all of us, emerging from all of us. I don't know exactly what that will look like, but that is the vision I'm most interested in. I hope life will, in the future, will evolve to a point where there will be an emergent collective intelligence coming out of all of our individual intelligences, and that we don't lose our individuality even as we become parts of this emergent higher collective self.
Or like in English, you can be translated into bullet screen or bullet curtain. You can submit your comments. It's just like a bullet subtitle. You flew over the screen, faster or slower, in different color, different fonts. It was deployed to all of the major websites. And this is so fascinating because sometimes when you look at a specific video, the subtitle of 弹幕 actually is covering over the original content. So basically you couldn't see anything but the comments. And all these comments seems like they have their own life, they have their own voices, they're competing. You're seeing a big fighting happening simultaneously from all this individual and people trying so hard to voice up. And this is actually reflecting the reality from a certain level. Like in this society, everyone try to own their own voice, but somehow it turned out to be like a collective kind of expression. I think it might be a good trigger to help us to imagine the future of media, the future of collective intelligence, and how each individual living among this huge collective entity, they try to have their own voice, their own opinions, and try to stand up as an individual, but somehow you need to live in a harmonious and complex situation with the others. So I think this is fascinating.
So for me, collective intelligence is already all around us. Collective intelligence is embodied in our own bodies, but also in our connections with the environment, with the many multiple species intelligences that are all around us, be they animal, plant, insect. So collective intelligence for me ranges from the cellular to the planetary. It is human and non-human. It is biological, it is geological, and much of my work has been focused on elucidating the collective intelligences in other species and tracing the connections between the intelligences of those other species and humans.
I have both a sense of a collective intelligence as I see it now, which is a combination of, well, in some respects, it's the connections that we have with humanity, with our planet, with everything that's around us, with the things we make, whether that is a machine or AI, with the other species we interact with, whether it's pets or domestic animals, and it all functions together in a grander system. So on the one hand, I have that kind of concept of collective intelligence, and on the other hand, I think to myself, there's things that we can't even perceive. It's like, there's cells in my body that are semi-autonomous doing things, and then it somehow becomes a larger person, which is me. And do we have two separate consciousnesses going on? We don't even know for sure. So maybe there's something even beyond what I can imagine. In fact, I hope that there's something beyond what I can imagine, because that would make it even more exciting.
Before I came here, the collective intelligence or the collective ones are the opposite, the perfectly opposite idea of the individual one. But also I found the many layers of the collective one. Then the group of the individual make the collective cognition, and the making the social moving or acting, and the making the easy to going to the government supporting or making a type of cult easily. But the discussion will make another collective things, I think. In order to be aware the collective things occurred or moving, then we should research more, knowing more, or translate more idea from another language, another word. And the computer will support hugely rather than before, I believe.
The first thing that often comes to mind are like bees and ants and termites, where there is collective in the sense of everything in the hive or the hill is directed toward these same goals. Everyone has a place, they have a place, a role, they all function through that role. As far as I know, I haven't studied any of them in depth, but this is the stereotype of a collective, right? And collective intelligence then, in science fiction, has often been seen as where perhaps the planet is a biosphere that is so completely connected to each other that it has like attained a level of intelligence, and that it works together and everything responds to each other. And in that case, there's this question of whether is this a collective, or is this in which individuals still matter, or is this a collective in which the individual is subsumed into the collective, in which case does the collective now become an individual? These are questions that I don't really address that much in my fiction. I'm really a writer who comes out of the humanist and social sciences background, and when I think of collective intelligence, and I also actually liked what Catherine Hales had to say when she said that intelligence isn't really that useful, perhaps, because we don't really know what intelligence is, but cognition. But when I think of collective intelligence, I think of the shared knowledge we have. And to me, I think about culture. And that collective intelligence is also about context. What context do we share? When a reader picks up one of my books, what are they going to understand from what I've put down? And how much of what I put down are they going to understand? If I use a word that they don't know, then they don't understand it, and then they're losing something of the context. If they bring a meaning to something that I've done, or a resonance to an event that I put in the book, or a kind of a character, then they're going to have a reaction that I didn't expect when I put it down. So the collectiveness of our inner relationships with other people is I think of it in terms of art and how we respond to art, how we respond to ideas. So that's what I tend to look at collective intelligence as context and narrative.
For me, collective intelligence must start from individual intelligence. It is like a quantum process that an individual has an idea in his own brain and he sends it out. It's like a quantum process with all possibilities to meet some other ideas that resonance with this one, or triggered new thoughts by this original idea. So the idea just flow out everywhere, and to some point in some other brains, and there's another idea triggered by this one, and new ideas came out and also spread away. If you look at the whole process of a lot of people in systematic view, you found that a lot of brilliant ideas and intelligence came out from this system. It's just like a collective intelligent system. However, if this process is not driven by all individuals, if it is totally a collective calculating, then that collective intelligence will never happen, because only this individual intelligent idea part can generate all the novelty and can give all the possibilities and all the combinations and all the brilliant intelligence. So I suppose that we already have the collective intelligence of human race. In our history, in our past history, it's those intelligent, brilliant people. They connect with each other, they communicate with each other to let their personal, individual ideas to resonate with each other. And then we human civilization just go on with these ideas.
So once you have the idea that cognition consists of constructing an umwelt through the creature's interpretation of environmental information, then it seems to me you can make a very strong case that computational media also have cognitive capacities because they receive information from their environment. If it's only the information that a user inputs, they interpret that information and they deliver some kind of response. Now that we have large language models like GPT-3, 4, ChatGPT, and so forth, we now have this amazing technology with, I would say, advanced cognitive capacities. In some ways, cognitive capacities that surpass human capacities. For example, just the sheer amount of data at their disposal as they begin to interpret that data and draw connections far surpasses what any individual human could do. So we're really on the threshold of a new kind of era in which we've now invented artificial cognition. And it's my belief that the evolutionary pathways of humans are now entwined irreversibly with artificial intelligence.